Good afternoon, class. I'll be starting with a new chapter today. Chapter 8, page number is 129. Please check the page number in your book. Decolonization in Asia, China and Africa, Ghana and Kenya. As the board has reduced your syllabus, so we are not dealing with decolonization in Africa, Ghana and Kenya. But I will briefly discuss this topic also. We are only dealing with decolonization in Asia, China. So let's start with our first topic. 8.1, decolonization in Asia, Africa. Decolonization means it's the process of the colonies which are independent in the colonial country. Entry of the Western power. In the early part of the 19th century, China kept itself aloof from the rest of the world. It maintained the tradition by living peacefully since the Manchus took over in 1640s. So, in the early part of the 19th century, China kept herself aloof from rest of the world. She did not mingle with rest of the country. So it maintained the traditional. China maintained the traditional way of living peacefully since the Manchus took over in 1640s. But in the mid-19th century, the Europeans started knocking the door of China for commercial privileges. The Portuguese first established themselves in Macau, then the Dutch of Formosa, and the British at Canton. So, but after 1640s. In the mid 19th century, the Europeans started knocking door at China for commercial privileges. These European countries knocking door with China. The Portuguese established themselves in Macau. Then the Dutch come in Formosa, and the British in Canton. Taking advantage of the Opium Wars for long 3 years, 1839 to 42, the British forced China to hand over Hong Kong and compel her to grant trade facilities at great ports. Other Western powers followed the path of Britain, and gradually Chinese territories were partial out among the European powers. So, after taking the advantage of the Opium War, which took place in 1839 to 42, the British forced China to hand over the British forced China to hand over Hong Kong and compel China to grant trade facilities in certain ports. Other Western powers followed the path of Britain, and gradually Chinese territories were partial out of the European powers. Next topic is Taiping and Boxer Rebellion and aftermath. During the 1850 to 64, a movement known as Taiping Rebellion started and spread all over the southern China. It was spread partly a religious and partly a political reform movement. Ultimately, the movement was suppressed by regional armies. This was the beginning of the process of asserting independence of the regional ruler from the central government. So, during the 1850 to 64, the movement known as Taiping Rebellion started all over the South. It was started all over the China. It was partly a religious and partly a political reform movement. Ultimately, this movement was stopped by the regional armies, and this was the beginning of the process of asserting independence of the regional rulers for the central government. In 1894 to 95, China was defeated by Japan and was forced to surrender huge territories. The protest against foreign encroachment and exploitation was seen in Boxer Rising. 1898 to 1900, the Boxer Rising became a violent anti-foreign movement, but the Chinese were defeated by an international army. The foreigners dictated the terms of the settlement. The Manchu Express had to pay huge compensation for the damage of the property of the foreigners. The Boxer movement thus offered a genuine attempt to save the integrity of China. So, in 1894 to 95, China was defeated by Japan and China was forced to surrender huge territories to Japan. The protest against foreign encroachment and exploitation was seen in Boxer Rising. This Boxer Rising was Boxer Rising of 1898 to 1900. Even this Boxer Rising became a violent and anti-foreign movement, but the Chinese were defeated by the international army. Thus, the foreigners then dictated the terms of the settlement. Even the Manchu Empress Su had to pay compensation for the damage of the property of the foreigners. Thus, the Boxer movement was thus offered a genuine contempt to save the sovereignty of China. In the early years of the 20th century, thousands of Chinese students were abroad for educational purposes. They came from abroad and radical ideas and wanted to westernize China by overthrowing the old decadent Manchu dynasty. The lead was given by Sun Yat-sen, a doctor of medicine. He skillfully turned the anti-Manchu agitation into a republic movement. So, in the early 20th century, thousands of students went abroad for educational purposes, and after they came from abroad, they brought with radical ideas and now they wanted to westernize China by overthrowing the old descendant Manchu dynasty. So this was led by Dr. Sun Yat-sen, a doctor of medicine. He skillfully turned the anti-Manchu agitation into a republic movement. Next is revolution, the revolution of 1911. The government responded the call of the radical call and National Assembly in 1910 and offered sweeping concession, including constitutional government in the parliamentary type, but the supporters were not willing to compromise with the Manchu autocracy. In 1911, the supporters of Sun Yat-sen revolted against the Manchus and captured Nanking, which was then made the capital of the provincial republic. They made Sun Yat-sen the president of the republic in February 1912. The Manchu emperor abrogated the throne and republic was proclaimed over whole of China. So the revolution of 1911, the government responded to the call of the radical and called the National Assembly on 1910 and offer a sweeping concession, including constitutional government of the parliamentary type, but the supporters were not willing to compromise with the Manchu autocracy. In 1911, the supporter of Dr. Sun Yat-sen revolted against the Manchus and captured Nanking, which then made the capital of the provincial republic. They made Sun Yat-sen the republic of the as a president of the republic in February 1912. The Manchu emperor was thrown out of the throne and republic was proclaimed all over the China. Next topic is rule of Yuan Shikai. Sun Yat-sen resigned the president in favor of Yuan Shikai, an able general and shrewd politician. So Sun Yat-sen resigned as a president in favor of Yuan Shikai, and Yuan Shikai was an able general and a clever politician. With the support of the army, Yuan ruled as a military dictator, upsetting the expectation of Sun Yat-sen. So, with the support of the army, Yuan ruled as a military dictator. After upsetting the expectation of Sun Yat-sen, he wanted to consolidate his position with the help of the foreign power. Yuan started propaganda in favor of restoration of monarchy and establishing of a new dynasty. This led to protests and insurrection in the southern province, where republican sentiment was strong. Matters were heading towards a crisis, was however turned away by the sudden death of Yuan Shikai in 1916. So Yuan started propaganda in favor of now he wanted to restore a new restoration of monarchy and wanted to establish a new dynasty. This leads to a protest against the southern province, where republican sentiment were strong in the southern province. Matter were heading as this matter of establishing a new dynasty was heading towards a crisis, which was however turned away after the sudden death of Yuan Shikai in 1916. Next topic is role of Japan. China had no direct relation in the First World War, but Japan declared 21 demands in China, calculated to make China a Japanese control of England, France and Russia signed a secret treaty with Japan, and this compelled the big power to accept Japan's claim on Chinese territory. In the Versailles Treaty, Shantung province of China, which was then under German control, was given to Japan. This new produced violent explosion of popular feeling in China, anti-Japan agitation that flared up. So China has, it is said that China has no direct relation in the First World War, but Japan declared 21 demands in China calculated to make China a Japanese control of England, France and Russia. Signed a secret treaty with Japan, and this compelled the big power to accept Japan claim on Chinese territory. In this Versailles Treaty, Shantung, a province of China which was then under the German control, this Shantung was given to Japan. So this new province violent explosion of popular feeling in China, anti-Japan, as after this Shantung was given to Japan, this anti-Japan agitation thus flared up. Flared up means it became an instant hit in the China. Next is Kuomintang Party and the Communists. The fate of China was then in the hands of the Kuomintang Party of National People's Party, founded by Sun Yat-sen. His ideas were influenced but he had very little power outside Canton area. Sun Yat-sen wanted to reorganize Kuomintang Party with the Russian help. Michael Borodin, an able Russian diplomat, transferred the Kuomintang Party into a highly organized party of disciplined members. The membership of the party was now drawn up, all the including of communists, provided by they accepted the Kuomintang principle. So this Kuomintang Party and the communists, the fate of the China was in the hand of the Kuomintang Party or National People's Party. It was founded by Sun Yat-sen. His ideas were influenced, but he had a very little power outside Canton's area. So Sun Yat-sen wanted to reorganize Kuomintang Party with the help of the Russian. Michael Borodin, an able Russian diplomat, transferred the Kuomintang Party into a highly organized party of a disciplined member. So even the membership of the party now thrown up to all the including of the communists, provided they accepted the Kuomintang principle. Sun Yat-sen's main principles were nationalism, democracy and people livelihood. Sun Yat-sen gained enormous respect in all intellectual, statesmen and revolutionary leaders. When he died in 1925, little progress had been done towards achieving these three principles. So Sun Yat-sen's main principles were nationalism, democracy and people livelihood. So Sun Yat-sen gained enormous respect in all the intellectual, statesmen and as a revolutionary leader. But when he died in 1925, a little progress has been done towards achieving these three principles. Next is Chiang Kai-shek era. After Sun Yat-sen died in 1925, Chiang Kai-shek became the leader of the Kuomintang Party. He completed the military education from Tokyo Military College. So after the death of Sun Yat-sen in 1925, Chiang Kai-shek became the leader of the Kuomintang Party as he completed his military education from Tokyo Military College. He also went to Russia to study military development. He even went to Russia to study military development. During this time, New Soviet Russian helped and guided the Kuomintang Party in the hope that nationalist China would become friendly towards China. So during this time, New Russian government helped and guided Kuomintang Party, and in the hope that nationalist China would become friendly towards Russia. But though Chiang had close relation with Soviet China, he was not a communist. So, but Chiang was a close relation with Soviet China and he was not a communist. During 1927, Chiang felt that communists become very popular inside Kuomintang Party. The pro-communist nationalism set up a parallel government in Hankow and captured Nanking. So, in 1925, Chiang felt that the Communist Party, this Communist Party were became a very popular inside Kuomintang party. So the pro-communist nationalist army set up a parallel government in Hankow by capturing Nanking. Chiang now decided to get rid of the communists and started purification movement. So now Chiang want to get rid of the communist party from the Kuomintang party and started purification of movement. Thus he purged the Kuomintang of the communists and radical, in course of which the communists were massacred. So he purged the Kuomintang party from the communists and the radical, in course of which the communists were massacred. He then cut off all the relation with the Russian communists in 1927 and set up the national government in Nanking. So after the communists were massacred, he then cut all the relation with the Russian communists in 1927 and set up a national government at Nanking. Next is Long March of the Communists. To purge the communists, he carried out 5 expeditions against them between 1930 and 1934. So to purge the communists, he carried out to get rid of the communists, he carried out 5 expeditions against them between 1930 and 1934. Mao Zedong now became the leader of the communists. Now Mao Zedong became the leader of the communists. Besides chased by Chiang, the communist member took shelter in the mountains between Hunan and Jiangxi province and concentrated the building of the Red Army. So being chased by the Chiang, the communist member, now they took shelter in the mountain of Hunan and Jiangxi province and concentrated in building up the Red Army. Now they are concentrated in building up an army called Red Army. Very soon the base was surrounded by the Kuomintang army for the final destruction of the communists and the leaders. So very soon the base was surrounded by the Kuomintang army for final destruction of the communists and the leader. Mao then realized that only chance of survival was to break through Chiang's defense with the communist forces. Mao started the memorable and historical long march of more than 6,000 miles to join the communist forces of the north. So Mao then realized that the only chance of survival from the Chiang's was the breakthrough Chiang's. Now they have to break Chiang's defense with the communist forces. Mao started the memorable and historical long march with the 6,000 miles to join the other communist forces in the northwest. They started to cross 18 mountain ranges, 24 rivers, and had to proceed through heavy fighting. Thousands thus perished on the way, and finally 20,000 survivors reached the province of Yan'an, and where a new base was organized. This long march is one of the epics of the history and province and proved to be brilliant piece of communist propaganda. So this as the historical long march started, and they had to this Mao Zedong party has to cross 18 mountains, 24 rivers, and had to proceed through heavy fighting. Thousands of army thus perished on the way, and finally only 20,000 survivors reached the province of Yan'an, where a new base was organized. So thus this long march is one of the epic. It was one of the epic of history and proved to be brilliant piece of communist propaganda. Retreat of Chiang Kai-shek. In 1937, Japan attacked, temporarily unified with the communists and the Kuomintang party. They jointly offered assistance against Japan. So in 1937, Japan attacked, temporarily unified both the communists and the Kuomintang party. They jointly offered resistance against Japan, but with the collapse of Japan in the Second World War, quarrel came to head. In the long struggle between the nationalist Kuomintang and the communists compelled the Kuomintang and its supporters to leave the mainland of China and to take refuge at Formosa. In this long struggle between the nationalist Kuomintang and the communists compelled the Kuomintang supporters to leave the mainland of China and to take refuge at Formosa, a place protected by the United States of America. This Formosa was protected by the United States of America. So the victorious Communist Party then proclaimed China as the People Republic of China on 1st October 1949 with Mao Zedong as the chairman of the republic. So the victorious Communist Party then proclaimed China as a republic, as a People Republics of China on 1st October 1949 with Mao Zedong as Mao Zedong became the chairman of the republic. So in the next class, I'll be discussing the causes of the communist victory and some other topics. That's all for today. Thank you.